Well, I want to welcome everybody. From time to time, I think we'll have various sponsors. Today's program is brought to you by Kurt Rutzen Needs a Job. And so just getting this, we have thousands of visitors. This is probably bigger than even the Larry King show before his unfortunate passing. So anyway, he's pretty talented, good looking, eloquent, and he was a rock star today in our press conference. So anyway, and actually that's not so irrelevant to our topic today. The question is, how do we help everybody be engaged in our economy? How do we help get more, help our services for nursing homes and assisted livings and home care and day services and all that, group homes. And so today we have 6 bills up. And we're not going to be moving any of them. We're going to be talking about ideas in the bills. I really do not want to hear about what Article 4, Section 2 does. I'd like to know the concept behind what you're bringing forward with whatever particular project we have. And I hope we can have some time to talk about it. And so perhaps if each of the different testifiers, when they come, can take just a few minutes and outline the theme. Like we need, parents of a child needs to be allowed to work 60 hours instead of 40. We don't really spend a lot of time on that, but and I really haven't thought how we're going to handle the discussion. So if you have a thought at the time, members, you want to bring up, I think that'd be great. And we're going to be ending around our usual, 2:30 or so. Coming up on Tuesday, just for those people who like to know the future, we're going to be doing 2 separate topics, more substance abuse. We're going to be talking about other states that have that have separated behavioral health out from the home office of their Medicaid facility or their Medicaid agency and how that actually worked. That's a brief discussion. We're going to, Senator Eaton's going to walk through some of those states just in kind of a rough oversight. If you want to talk about it, we can, but mostly it's meant to just present those ideas to get them out there so there's more discussion. What I'm trying to generate on that is discussion in the hallways, and eventually we'll bring it back here and talk about that some more. We're also going to hear from the department on the RCO, the Recovery Community Organization matter. Had a great chat with Mr. Rutherford today from ARCO. And so but I'm persuaded that the status quo has to be a little different, and so that was a productive chat, but we want to make sure we have any group that could be an RCO can be an RCO. I didn't bring my picture of Jake along. Maybe I'll start bringing it every time. But I just personally refuse to have bureaucracy get in the way of service. And we've been so nervous about checking off the boxes and having all the paperwork squared away that I think sometimes we wind up not serving people that really could use something. And so that's what that'll be another brief thing there. So I asked the department to bring a little information about how we fund RCOs, and because there's some grants, and I'm not current on even how much money we put out. So we'll learn a little bit about that. But then the balance of the hour, maybe after a half hour of that, is going to be to talk about what's it going to cost. And so we had a press conference today, and some of the questions we had from the different media folks were really very good. Well, what else are you going to do? It's like, we have to do something else as well. And even $322 million, almost a third of $1 billion, seems like a lot of money until you count 206,000 people. And just to preview that conversation, if you had $1.2 billion, if we had that much to spend in this committee on workforce, and you had $400 million and then $800 million in the next biennium, that'd be enough to give all the 200,000 workers $1 raise. And everybody would admit that $1 is a nice raise, but it's not going to go anywhere near enough to handle it. So it's a mammoth problem. So I'm inviting, in a similar way, and I'm not sure if they're all even scheduled, but just a short idea about, what if we did this? What if we changed the DWRS formula? What if we paid PCAs differently? And so when somebody says, what's it going to cost? Then at least maybe in a bipartisan committee manner, we can go like, really, it's going to take this much? It's like, wow, that's a lot. But so no one even knows the numbers. So that's what Tuesday's going to be. And then Thursday, we're going to spend some more time talking about how to maximize the effectiveness of workforce, which is what today is about. So anyway, with that, thanks for that, and just to remind people who maybe didn't listen to the end of the last meeting, which was probably the best few minutes of TV anywhere, I think if we could get our arms around making substance use more effective, our treatment more effective, and not have any more, or at least have fewer Jakes, which is a tragic low bar to set. If we could get that improved upon and do something with workforce that's actually meaningful, I think that's pretty good for an off-season time. And there's other small things we'll work on. And to members who have projects that are on their minds, let us know what you want to work on, and without regard to who you are, we're going to be. If there's something important to you, we should probably talk about it. So anyway, who's up first? Ms. Shuttle. We're going to talk about Senate File 3128. These are all in the, on the calendar. You can look those over. And so we have Ms. Shuttle and Ms. Grafstrom. And so I don't know how you're going to tag team that. But again, if you can keep it kind of high level and thematic, so we can come up with some ideas about what we want to do, and we'll work out the language eventually. So thanks.
Thank you. Actually, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, Sue. So good morning, committee members. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to kick us off and then turn it over to Sue Shuttle, our CEO. So I want to just start by thanking you for holding this hearing. I'll introduce myself for the record. My name is Sarah Grafstrom. I'm the Director of State and Federal Policy at ARM. Again, thanks for the opportunity to discuss these really critical workforce solutions. Thank you for the time that you are giving to this committee to, hear from stakeholders and get our ideas and have this really important conversation. I had some more detailed testimony provided, but given your comments, I'm going to throw that all out and wing it. So here we go. But I'm going to start with Senate File 3128, which is the first bill that's noted on the agenda. It is a piece of legislation that is carried by Senator Hoffman. And, as some big overall themes, it makes regulatory and service changes that are aimed at helping the workforce strain, supporting families to maintain natural support, and reducing some provider administrative burden. So, again, not wanting to get too in the weeds on the details of what some of the legislation does, but three really important things I think it focuses on. First is respite for kiddos. There are some changes that were made at the end of 2021 that drastically reduced the locations where providers will be providing respite to kiddos in an out-of-home setting if the individual is not related to the person receiving the service. We've been meeting with the department a lot about how to remedy this and try to get some of these sites that had previously been allowed, like hotels or trusted caregiver sites, back online, so we can ensure that access to respite for those families is available. And within the bill language, what you see is that one of the biggest issues that the department identified for us was the fact that foster care providers weren't having access to Adam Walsh background studies. So we want to make that happen, and we want to make sure that we are in line with all of the requirements that the department and the federal government want to make sure that we're meeting. And so our legislation would allow providers, foster care providers, when providing these services to kiddos, to access those Adam Walsh studies. Again, just trying to open up the options once again to these families of where they can be receiving out-of-home respite for their kiddos. The other really important thing that our bill does in respect to respite is it removes unit-based respite from the DWRS framework. Right now, if you're a provider and providing unit-based respite, you can provide it in a shared manner, which is really important during these staffing shortages to be able to utilize our staff in the most efficient way. So you can provide respite for unit-based services to up to 3 individuals at the same time. The kicker is when you're providing that service, the rate is what it would be for one person divided by the number receiving the service. So there's really no incentive to be providing the service to more than one person because you're not being reimbursed for those extra individuals that you're supporting. And so by removing the service from the framework, we are able to work with our counties to develop a rate that makes sense for that service, for that community that we're serving, and for the individuals that are accessing that unique service, and keep providers sustainable. And then the final piece that I want to just highlight in this legislation before I turn it over to Sue for some of our other really important workforce initiatives is creating a new unit of service for individualized home supports with training. Right now, there is a 15-minute unit or a daily unit. The daily unit's used when you're providing right on average 6 hours of service a day for individuals living in their own home. This is a challenge for individuals that receive a high level of service from a provider. It's a lot of units that a provider would need to be tracking. And so we are proposing a 15-minute unit and a 1-hour unit. Again, just trying to eliminate some of the administrative burden that providers have when trying to maintain records and track all of these different units of service, but still honoring the intent of this service as far as making sure that individuals have choice of, who they want to be providing the service and when they want that to be provided. So those are just a few ideas in this first piece that we have around things that we think will help the workforce, on the back end for the provider, but also maintaining some of those natural supports in the community and being able to use our staffing resources in the most efficient way. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Shettle to talk a little more about some of the short-term workforce initiatives.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks for winging it, Ms. Grafstrom. That was actually, just if anybody wants to know, that was a really good presentation. That's like an A level. So if you can match that or do better, it's a competition now. So Ms. Shettle, the pressure's on. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure there. Sarah's good on the fly like that. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Sue Shettle. I'm the CEO of ARM. We are a trade association supporting providers that support people with disabilities. I too am going to throw my testimony out and just talk about one of the issues that's contained within Senate File 2968 related to alternative overnight supervision. Technology has been a really great tool in our toolbox, especially given the staffing crisis that we're experiencing. But this issue of alternative overnight supervision is very important for our members. We want to expand the service, but one of the things that we've identified as being a barrier is that you have to get a separate license for providing this service overnight. You don't need, and we're trying to break down that barrier so that we can make this service that's more accessible to providers across the state. The rest of the legislation that we have, or that you have before you, appropriates additional dollars for providers to help with recruitment and retention of the workforce through child care grants, scholarship programs, retention bonuses, and a rate increase for ICF services, are all aiming to keep the staff that we currently have and at the same time supporting the incoming staff. Our members have other ideas that are not reflected in our comments here right now, but we would be eager to have additional conversations with the legislature and the department on those ideas moving forward. And finally, I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't say that along with these various workforce and provider flexibilities, it's critical that we work together to raise the wages of DSPs. You've heard this before, so I know this is just something that we all need to be working on together, and I appreciate your support in having those conversations with us. I want to thank you again for the work that you're doing to bring the DSP profession out from behind the curtain. And we need to talk about DSPs in the same way that we talk about PCAs, CNAs, nurses, and home health aides. They need to be more of the public narrative, and you've done a great job in helping us do that. So with that, I'll stop, and if you have any questions for Sarah and I, we'd be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. That was actually very good, too. You both get the gold stars. I think, Ms. Shettle, it would be helpful, I think, and I admit I get confused, so I'm not afraid to say I don't know something. If you could make a one-pager on all these different people that do various things. You mentioned 3 different ones in your comments, the home health aide, PCA, DSP. And I'm probably not too bad on that, but it would be nice if we all, when you said that, everybody knew exactly what you're talking about. And if you could also on the one-pager kind of list training, and maybe just since we're on workforce challenges, like how many of all those you might be needing in the industry, which you can identify as whatever definition of industry based upon that. So is that something you can work on, and maybe even for next Tuesday or Thursday, that could be maybe available for sure by Thursday, just so we can help people clarify that. So that comments from members about this? Now is a good time for that. Yeah, Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. It's good to be together and good to hear the testimony. I want to echo Ms. Shuttle's comments about wage increases. And I'll be a broken record about this, but in a good way. Senator Nelson, not in an obnoxious way, but these are critical sector positions. They are responsible for the care of Minnesotans who need the care. So the work is very important. It's also very hard. I have been a nurse and a nursing assistant both. It's physical work, it's difficult work, and if we want to recruit and retain those workers in this workforce, then I think we have to, in addition to what's being proposed here, really focus on wage increases, on health insurance, on paid family leave. I think those are all a part of how we're going to contain and continue to retain the workforce that we need in group homes, in nursing homes, assisted living, et cetera. And then, in addition, I have a note from a woman who couldn't be here today, but she sent an email. And I have known her for years. You probably know her as well, Alice Holpert. She said she tried to get onto the testimony list today, but couldn't. So she just wanted to make sure that the committee is aware of some of the problems with the 15-minute unit rates, that in general, with large amounts of money going into waivered services and so little coming to the direct support staff, that they have a problem. She said, we've had to move our son out of his home because his provider walked out after giving us only 10 days notice, and we've been unable to find another provider willing to work within our home model at this time. She's worried that the system will collapse because it's too expensive and too dependent on group home providers, and that we should be exploring other options. So that is Alice Hopert. She's from Edina, and she wanted to make sure that the committee heard that. Thank you.
Well, and thanks. And I really, that's very, these are really hard conversations, and the money is real big. And so if people find themselves unable to get into our list sometime, Mr. Yates is pretty diligent about reading his emails. And so at least if there's something you want to, if we can't fit you onto the live testifier list, then perhaps we could at least get the email out. And Senator Murphy, if you want to send that off to Mr. Yates, we can post that for Tuesday here from her. We definitely have our hands full. Other comments from members about this piece? I'll comment then. The overnight supervision and cameras, this is the time. So there's, I think the conclusion to what it's going to cost, there's no way we can pay what it's going to cost. Maybe there's money there if that's all we ever did, but there's so many competing interests that would not be against us, but they want to get money for education, for the environment, for a road, whatever, for various things that people decide that we want to do. Reduce the burden on families, everything, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things. But at the end of this discussion, we'd better find a way to make the same number of people stretch further and find a way to not need so many human beings on every level. If you're running a tracheostomy person and they need to be suctioned every 5 to 30 minutes, we're not getting rid of you. There's no way to have less of those around. But at least in a place they can actually, one person can help out several people. But we just have to find a way to make them more efficient. And, to this bill, you talked about overnight supervision. I am not very good at technology. If you didn't know that, ask my family. But Senator Hoffman helped me install 2 Blink cameras. Now, you can get Blink cameras. They're two-way communication. You can get 3 of them on Amazon for $85. And for $3 a camera, you can watch people. And I don't know why on earth, we have technology that's thousands of dollars here for less than $100, and the installation takes literally like 20 minutes, counting even the firmware update. You could then have somebody watching 50 cameras. They're motion activated. I mean, please, let's think of this. Let's figure out the barrier and just do it. If we don't get this now, we are really going to be the harm is going to be terrible. Anyway, anything else about the ARM proposal? All right. And thank you for all the people who work in these places. You're just saints. Okay, well, gee, it's like deja vu. Senate File 2968, Ms. Shuttle and Ms. Grafstrom. Well, welcome back.
And I think Senator Abeler,
Did you do them together?
we kind of did them together. Yep.
Whoa.
So,
How do you get bonus points to people that already have an A and a gold star?
They slipped that right under the radar.
There you go, Senator Utke, yeah. So So just, and let me help you understand how I think the dust is going to settle here. I totally want to put together a very robust, significant policy bill where we can do some of this stuff with just like, please, you can do this now, so just go do it. If there's fiscal costs or savings to that, that'll complicate matters. If there's savings, that probably helps a lot. Maybe we'll put out a savings bill. But so I don't know if there's going to be targets. I don't know how the two sides agree with all the different priorities that there are to get joint targets. Senator Murphy, we want to make book on that one. It's going to be interesting time. So we may well put out an omnibus bill. I don't know. But so for sure, the stuff that we can do that just takes somebody's permission to be more effective, I want to do all of that we possibly can. So anyway, moving on to Lutheran Social Services. Oh yeah, shared services. Welcome to you. This is an Abeler bill. Wow. Anyway, XXXX. So we have Ms. Stott and Mr. Bale. Welcome to the committee, and we're here to hear your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will try to get a gold star like Sarah and Sue. For the record, my name is Alyssa Dott, and I'm the Senior Director of Host Homes, Care Coordination, and Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services at Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota. I think I'll start out just describing what life sharing service is and what we're proposing here. I'll try to do it very briefly and summarize. Since 2011,
Well, just
LSS
Ms.
has
Stott,
been-
you don't have to race through. I just want substantial content. And
I
you
may
know,
or may not be nervous, but
you're doing
yeah.
great. So just don't rush. But I want to hear
Okay.
the substance of your thing, and however, if it takes as long as it takes to. So does that make sense? So maybe it
Yeah.
made you more nervous. I don't know, but just I'm glad you're here. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So life sharing, or host homes, as we call it at LSS, is an independent contractor model of support. That's important to remember. And what it is, LSS, we strive to find families or people who are willing to open their heart, home, and share their experiences with a person with disabilities. After a robust matching process and everyone agrees that it would be a good fit, the family or the person contracts with a life sharing agency such as LSS. Each team member has different roles and responsibilities, and the role of the life sharing agency is to hold the 245D license, provide oversight of plans, goals, and outcomes for the person, provide training to the family, ensure compliance, and be an overall support to both the individual served and the family. The family's role is to provide the day-to-day support to the individual and help them achieve their hopes and dreams. I like to think about it like this. The life sharing agency does a lot of the behind the scenes work and compliance work, while the family gets to focus on helping the person have a great life. Life sharing is a proven model, and research shows that by living with a family, a person with disabilities has the opportunity to participate in all desired aspects of family and community life. According to the Council on Quality Leadership, or CQL, their data analysis, people who choose where and with whom to live are 4 times more likely to exercise their rights, 6 times more likely to choose where they work, and 7 times more likely to choose their services and live in an integrated environment. In addition, and in comparison to other service settings, people who live in host homes have more outcomes present in the following areas, such as people are safe, people have the best possible health, people experience continuity and security, people participate, interact, and are integrated into their community, and people realize their goals. Currently, life sharing is not a formal waiver service in Minnesota. While similar supports can be accessed using existing disability waiver services, the current framework and the absence of a statewide service and reimbursement model for life sharing has created barriers for accessing this service for individuals and providers. This life sharing proposal that the Department of proposes that the Department of Human Services work with stakeholders to develop recommendations to establish life sharing as a covered medical assistance waivered service. A robust collaborative stakeholder engagement process will result in co-creating a high quality, sustainable life sharing service for Minnesotans. It also requires topics for stakeholders to discuss and discussion of removing existing barriers. Bringing together a formal stakeholder group will allow us to build on our partnership that we already have with DHS and co-create a service together that more closely aligns with the widely recognized life sharing service. Next, you'll get to hear from Larry, a person supported who lives in host homes. Thank you, Senator Abeler and committee members, for your support of this bill. We're hopeful that it will increase awareness, accessibility, and viability of person-centered, community-based, and culturally responsive support for Minnesotans with disabilities. Thank you.
Well, thanks.
Not sure I got an A on that.
No, you were
but,
amazing.
know.
I don't know, that we'll wait for the judges to come back with the scores here. And so families at home, you can like send in, you can vote as you, there's an open time now to kick us in the scores. Anyway, so Mr. Bale, how nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Hey there.
I'm here. Yep, I'm here, Senator.
Yeah, you look good.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Larry Bale. I am living in a host home as part of a shared living experience. And in that time of living here, I have noticed many opportunities and started many relationships. I've been in a host home now for almost a year, and in that time I have seen changes and opportunities and have relationships. During the time when I was also, I noticed that about every day, what my every day is like. And also, as part of shared living, I also get to see many people and meet many people and for example, I am a member of the Lions Club that meets once a month at the Legion Club. And I am also a member of the Red Wing Community Men's Choir. We practice a lot and we have concerts a lot. Right now we are not rehearsing. We're having choir rehearsals because we are in hiatus due to COVID. And I also want to say that I do church. I do church activities. I go to church on Sunday mornings. I go to Bible study on Sunday mornings. And I do voters meetings once in a while with the church. And I also go to Jesus Cares, which is a ministry that also was for the people with disabilities. And just also a note, as part of shared living in a group home, host home, I love to travel. Traveling helps me to be a good tourist and to have lots of fun. Last 2 years, we went on 2 trips this past spring. And currently, in May of this year, we are going on a trip with my host home family, their friends, and their children. And then, in the near future, we are going on another trip with my host home and my extended family. Being a part of host home is like being a part of a family. Thank you, and if anyone would love to be in a host home, I highly recommend it that they do so. And because for me, being in a host home has been working out really, really awesome. I thank you for letting me hear this story, And I hope this story will inspire others to branch out and do the same. Your friend, Larry Bale.
You know, Larry, your testimony was delightful. Everybody's smiling here. With the Zoom, you can't see all the members, but you've lit up the room. So thank you for that. That was just amazing.
To see all the people is at birth, I was born blind.
Oh, well.
That's why I can't see the people on the.
When you go out in the sun and feel the warmth of the sunshine, you'll feel the warmth that's in this room right now. So, anyway, any questions or any comments from Mr. Bale? Anybody want to have a chat about that? Anyway, I have a question. Thank you so much. You're just an excellent spokesman for that. Ms. Dott, so this has got to save money if we do this. And so when I just think this is something we should try to do. And I sometimes wonder why they have to have money to even look into this, since they're supposed to be the policy directors. And Mr. Burdick, we can talk about that later, and just singling you out because I figure you're listening. But this to me just seems like, hello, why would we not do this? We're going to pay for a group home. We're going to pay for a, independent living site. And why would we not? This would be something that would be way better. So, Ms. Dott, can you just comment about?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you want to say besides this? I mean,
I
it's
think
just
that,
like, hello, let's do this tomorrow.
It's certainly an option among many, right? That reduces kind of the 4-person community residential setting brick and mortar. It's, again, one option among many. It's all about that matching process, as you can hear from Larry's testimony, that he actually used to live in an LSS group home and was matched up with a host home in his area, and sounds like he's living a great life. And so, yeah, it certainly is something that could be cost savings and not rely on the shift staffing model of that's currently in our 4-person community residential settings.
No, that's perfect. And just since we're kind of doing this as we go, trying to figure out how do we get a good conversation going, maybe I'll just give notice to my good friends, the smart people from DHS that are listening to this. I think we're going to have you react to, we'll give you an enumerated list of things we'd like you to react to about how hard it could it be, and why can't we do it now, and what do you think of the idea, to kind of pre-sort some ideas that there's a lot of agreement on. I have to think you like this. So anyway, so Mr. Burdick, you can put a pin in that. We'll talk about it. But I think part of next Thursday is going to be maybe some more folks with ideas in bill language or just ideas, and then a discussion for the last half of the time with whomever is going to get to talk to us. So any questions for Ms. Dott or Mr. Bale? Seeing none. Well, that was a really good segment. The really good segment award. Okay, and there's a lot of Abeler bills up there. That's all I ever do is sign bills. Ms. Garrett's 2772. This is a really good one. Welcome to the committee, and we have a couple testifiers about this.
Thank you. Chair Abeler and committee members, thank you for having this conversation today, and thank you, Chair Abeler, for authoring this bill. My name is Vicki Garrett, and I'm with Team Services and Minnesota First Community Solutions. Senate File 2772 proposes a simple change that can have a big impact for families. It's a creative way to help fill the critical void that exists today in our disability caregiver workforce. It raises the current weekly cap that is in place for parents of minors and spouses who provide care to their loved ones. This legislation would not increase the number of assessed hours or services for Minnesotans with disabilities. It would simply allow parents of minors and spouses to be reimbursed for providing more of those assessed hours. This would help alleviate the worker shortage and the economic hardship these families face. Excuse me, as they support their loved ones at home and avoid more costly congregate out-of-home settings. Specifically, the bill would raise the current 40-hour weekly cap for consumer-directed community supports and the soon-to-come Community First Services and Supports program. The 40-hour cap is for the household, so that is regardless of the number of kids receiving services, the number of parents providing care, or the number of assessed hours for the kids or the spouse. This bill would allow each parent in a two-parent household to provide up to 40 hours of care per week. It would allow a single parent or a parent in a household where only one can provide the care to provide up to 60 hours of care a week, and it would allow spouses to provide up to 60 hours of care. This bill will provide needed flexibility and better support for families with medically fragile children or a spouse, and allow them to care for their loved one with a disability at home and control who comes in and out of their house as we continue to navigate the COVID pandemic and the workforce crisis. I now will turn it over to Osab Mohammed, who is going to share her personal story of how this bill will help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was pretty compelling. Ms. Osab, Ms. Mohammed, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chair Abeler and committee. My name is Osab Mohammed. Thank you for the opportunity today to testify on SF 2772, legislation proposing to raise the weekly hourly limit on disability care provided by parents of minors and spouses under the Consumer Direct Community Support Program and the soon-to-become Community First Service and Support Program. Passing this bill is so vital to many families, including mine, as a single parent of 2 children with disabilities and a frontline healthcare worker fighting the COVID-19. The passing of this bill will significantly help me improve care for all my kids. My 2 children are on the Consumer Direct Community Support Program. Currently, I face many challenges trying to fulfill both professional duties and provide appropriate and necessary care to my children. My family has personally been affected by the shortage of direct support professionals. It has been very difficult to find staff at this time. This situation has left me with fear the fear of having to leave my career altogether to focus on providing care for my 2 children, and that would be very economically challenging for my family. If legislation was passed to raise the number of hours per week as a parent or a spouse could be reimbursed for providing disability care, this would lessen the great financial stress my family and other families like mine face. Our community has been affected by the workforce shortage, especially after the pandemic struck communities in recent years. BIPOC and immigrant communities are disproportionately being affected compared to those with social capital, making it difficult for ordinary families to access quality and necessary care. Caregivers' mental health and well-being have significantly been affected while they're forced to make impossible choices between how to care for their family members with disability while also keeping employment to provide financial for their families. Raising the 40-hour weekly cap will significantly help improve the financial stability of families caring for children or spouses with significant disabilities, while also helping in dealing with the shortage of workers in the healthcare world. Also, we need to focus on achieving livable wages for all caregivers and providing care options for children with disabilities. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to my testimony, and please continue to work and stand up for families like me.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mohammed. I don't know, people are watching at home. This is all really very good quality testimony. So if you want to know how to run your committees, listen to us today. These folks are just really doing well. That was really pointed. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Mohammed?
Thank you.
Is there a hand? So I think at the end, we're kind of doing pretty well on time. When we get through with all the comments, we're going to go back to kind of a discussion part. And I think just as a committee, we're going to pull out of these pieces of legislation ideas we want the department to comment on next Thursday as part of that discussion. And other ideas, we want them just to offer their thoughts. I don't think it's fair to have them react without some preparation time. But I'm going to make my prediction, Senator Hoffman, that this is going to cost us money to let out one person. So a person is awarded 80 hours a week. And so the parent can do 40. They can't find anybody else for the 40 hours, but then they're going to fill up to 60 hours with the one parent.
Okay.
But because they can't find the 40 hours, that's going to take new money to pay for the 20 hours that this parent can provide, which is the only reason we save money on some of this stuff, because they can't find people to work. And then we find ways to fill up the hours that they're allocated. Then we are charged that in the forecast.
And that goes to the bottom line. It's seen as is that a savings?
That's
then?
a savings.
That is a savings. And then let me ask you this: do you get to capture that savings and put it back within the system, or does that get to the bottom line, which goes to the general fund? And then, of course, my argument would be the general fund gets balanced on the back of people with disabilities, Senator Abeler, and then you would say, no, that's not the conversation we're having right now.
And then Senator Hoffman, they say, what, you want more new spending?
New spending, correct.
Even though we allowed 80 hours and spent 40. Anyway, so, Ms. Mohammed, I hope you don't mind us talking about that in front of you, but I mean, I signed this bill because I thought it just made the most amount of sense ever, particularly in these times. And so amazing parents like you can take care of your family, which I know keeps you awake at night, which is bad because you have so much to do when you're in the daytime. Other comments about this? That was awesome. Okay, another Abeler bill? How many of these are there? 2773. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Zabraki. I think I ruined that. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chair Abeler. Chair Abeler and members of the committee, my name is Julie Zabraki, and I am the CEO of Partnership Resources, a nonprofit organization serving Minnesotans with disabilities in the Twin Cities metro area since 1960. Our organization supports over 300 Minnesotans with disabilities in reaching their employment and day enrichment goals. I also serve on the board of MORE, the state association for organizations providing these services. I am here to speak today about Senate File 2773. Specifically within the file, I am speaking today about the standard occupational codes used to form the base wage for employment exploration services. This bill proposes aligning this base wage with that of employment development services, one of the 3 services for employment services. Doing so intends to increase access to this service for Minnesotans with disabilities while improving the wages paid to the direct support professionals providing this service. MORE is bringing forward this legislation to build upon our current efforts as a state to best support Minnesotans with disabilities to live, work, and engage in their communities as independently as possible. We have been working on this bill for a few years, and now coupled with the workforce shortage we are experiencing in the disability services field, it is more important than ever to find ways to increase access to the services that support Minnesotans with disabilities to become as independent as possible. As background for the change proposed in the bill, 3 new services became available in the summer of 2018, directly related to our work as a state to better support Minnesotans with disabilities to find and keep competitive integrated employment in the community. The 3 new services focus on, first, exploring competitive integrated work, and next, developing job opportunities, and finally, the 3rd step, maintaining jobs. As an organization providing community-based employment since the 1980s, it was really exciting to have these 3 new services specifically made to support competitive work in the community. As a crucial first step, employment exploration services focuses on helping people understand and gain exposure to competitive integrated employment options. This service uses career exploration to better inform choice. People with disabilities learn what competitive integrated employment is, what it means for them, what job opportunities there are. They are supported in exploring interests, gaining knowledge and skills, and even taking part in work experiences. When these services were implemented, a lower base wage was set for the Employment Exploration Service. Having the first of these three services with a lower base wage has made it very challenging for providers to offer this critical first step service to Minnesotans with disabilities. It is difficult to find staff to work at these low wages, which limits our ability to provide more people access to this very important service, aimed at exploring competitive and community-based work. This service has the potential to be a stepping stone for many individuals in choosing to thrive in their communities through competitive work, but it is impossible to carry out without talented staff to provide this service. At my organization, we see incredible changes every day in people's lives when competitive employment is obtained. It increases access to and inclusion in the community. Self-esteem is built and empowerment gained from earning wages and becoming more independent. Thriving in community employment increases personal relationships as a broader network of friends and fellow employees grows. Offering employment exploration services extends this potential opportunity to explore competitive employment to more Minnesotans with disabilities. This bill proposes to align the standard occupation code used to form the base wages for this specific service with that of the Employment Development Service, the subsequent service that an individual accesses when they are ready to move from exploring to securing a competitive community-based job. This rate alignment would better position providers to attract and deploy experienced and well-trained staff to provide employment exploration services to those interested in exploring integrated jobs with competitive wages. We are asking for your support of this specific and concrete step that the legislature can take to help move us closer to our statewide goal of best supporting Minnesotans with disabilities to live and work as independently as possible. Well, again, keeping in mind that this is even more important today in a time with disability services staff shortages. Thank you for your time today, Chair Abeler and committee members. I'm here for any questions, and I know Julie Johnson, the Moore president, is also here to support that.
Okay. Hi, Julie. Can you tell me roughly, actually, I'm reading the bill. Senator Hoffman, I'm frightened. I'm actually reading this legislation, and I'm actually understanding it. And I'm not to the point of my amazing staff who
Do you want me
writes
to
all
tell
this
you,
stuff.
Mr. Chair, when we brought the actual, we originally did this bill.
Yeah.
And you, Carla, me, we were all on this, and I
Yeah.
don't think we intended that to be the case, that it's
Well, no.
happening, right? It's like,
Anyway, yeah, so the details
ahead.
matter. So, anyway, Ms. Zabraki, can you tell me what the wage is currently and what this would bring it to? Do you know offhand?
Chair Abeler, I believe it is, well, it's a $10 difference straight on the wages, but there's also 2 different SOC codes in the rate, but that's to alter the one that's used in meshing the rate. But Julie, you probably.
I don't have that in front of
Yeah,
me,
Ms.
Chair
Johnson.
Bueller.
All
I'm
right.
sorry, this is Julie Johnson.
Hey there.
I can look that up and get that back to you, but I didn't look up that
Well, I'm
exact
just-
rate.
Yeah, I'm just curious, and because I remember when we set this up, and I said to the department, let's make this, because we're trying to move people out of day services if they don't need to be there. And if they need to be there, we better keep them, because it's ideal for some folks and less than ideal for others. But as you can create a door on the side where people can try to go out and explore and then work, especially now given the workforce challenges, we wanted everybody who could possibly be able to work to go there and then allow, I'm not even sure if we got this accomplished, but to allow the day service providers to actually do this as well. I think that's true, isn't it, Ms. Johnson? Anyway,
Yes.
but so in an effort to keep them open, they needed to have things to do that were different than just housing folks who shouldn't be there. And so I wanted this to be, so it would actually be, either be a business model, they actually could stay open while they did this. And so I was surprised that when it came back that that this was a non-competitive wage. And I think, didn't we do this last year, Senator Hoffman? Wasn't this in our bill last year? Do you remember that, Ms. Johnson? Did we pass this?
Chair Bueller, we did bring this
All right.
bill forward last year as well.
And we tried to carry it, didn't we? Did we carry it out of here
Yes.
in our omnibus?
Yes,
Okay.
we did, and it's a small bill, and it was a complicated session, and I think it didn't pass. As
No,
a
actually, it
provider,
was,
It went to the other body, right?
yeah, no, it did pass, and it wasn't that much money, and it fell apart in negotiations
Yes.
as a specific thing that was not desirable over there, but
Really?
yeah. So this is and I think it was a lack of understanding, because they didn't
Yeah.
work as much
Chair
as we
Abeler,
did.
I
Senator,
believe
Mr.
that-
Zabraki? Oh, it's
I
Ms.
believe that
Johnson.
Julie presented that very well, that this exploration service and the employment development service, as a provider, it's done by the same individual, the same staff,
Yeah,
a different rate for each
Yeah.
of the services. For the staff presents a lot of difficulty because they've developed that relationship and it really helps people find
yeah.
employment.
no, I didn't, I was disappointed even when it came out originally. Every year I get a little smarter and like, oh, it's gonna be a great rate, you're gonna like it. I'm like, okay, perfect, I'm gonna like it. And we don't. So anyway, well, that's helpful. And so, I mean, it's just something we should do, and maybe it makes more sense now. If we had a workforce package, Senator Hoffman, members, this could be part of a workforce package. So put a star by that one. Any
Chair
questions?
Abeler, I will send you
Yes.
those exact rates so that you have them.
Oh, thank you.
As soon as
And
I
then-
look them up.
Yeah, good, send it to Mr. Yates, and then he'll get that out to us somehow or other.
Wonderful, thank you.
Any other comments about this? Because we're still, there was a letter put out by the consortium folks last December asking for the National Guard to be called out, understanding we may have to have a few less independent, choices and options while we keep people like warm and safe. But even though we're in these times of challenge, we have to continue to move people to independence. The best answer for an individual who's getting services is to get a job they can go out and begin to live on. And so to interrupt that process is actually going against needing less staff and actually helping people pay their own way. Anyway, so that's productive. Okay, Senate File 2974. And Senator Hoffman, you're a co-author, Senator Bach, Begum, and Clausen, as well as myself. So Ms. Hulden and Ms. Burkstaller, whatever you have cooked up for us, go to town, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members, my name is Maren Hulden. I'm an attorney at Legal Aid, which includes the Minnesota Disability Law Center. The Disability Law Center, as many of you know, is the statewide protection and advocacy organization for folks who have disabilities across the state. We provide free legal services to kids and adults who have disabilities. And I was going to, I think what you just said, Mr. Chair, is actually exactly where I was going to start. You have pulled together an incredible group of folks to talk about how this workforce shortage impacts every aspect of our disability services, from employment to where people live, to new ideas for housing and, of course, PCA. And what I really wanted to start with was what you just said about how, yes, we have to triage and address this workforce shortage, but how do we make sure that we don't lose sight of the independence and informed choice that we all worked so hard on last session, to make sure that people still can make choices about where they live and where they work. And specifically, last year, I think you actually named your bill, right? Independence, we really mean it. And at the end of last summer, we were all feeling so optimistic. I mean, we had passed a new policy statement around it being the informed choice of our state for people to choose where they live. And, with the HCBS FMAP money, there was money to support people to transition to community living. But now we're really worried because it looks as if this workforce shortage could really wipe out a lot of the progress that we've made in supporting people to make that choice to live in their own home. Obviously, if you're going to live in your own home, you have to have, and you need support throughout the day, you have to have someone to come in and do them. And those people are not always there. If you're going to live in your own home, you need to have a plan for what happens if your PCA calls in sick. And that's happening even more and more with the workforce shortage, or your PCA doesn't have childcare, or your DSP doesn't have childcare. So I just really wanted to emphasize, and the ARC is here with us too, the importance of keeping our focus on supporting people to live in their own homes if they choose, even as we try to address this incredible workforce shortage. And we do have a few, well, as you referenced the consortium's December letter, we've got a lot of ideas about how to do this. But I'll just talk about a few specifically today. And really, as we see it, it's really important to continue to provide individuals and families with the supports that they need to find creative solutions to meet their support needs in their own home settings. And also that when we are developing workforce solutions, we're developing them for all the places that people live, including in-home settings. So a few of the things in Senate File 2974 that we think would help. One, would making it easier for people who live in their own homes to choose to share services. Two people have decided to be roommates and they want to share services or a service provider. That's something that they should be able to do. And we want to kind of make sure to remove any barriers to people making that choice if it's the right choice for them. Another piece about addressing what happens if you live in your own home and a support worker can't make it, or your support worker's schedules change throughout the week. This is a problem, obviously, that the workforce shortage is exacerbating, and Senate File 2974 would give case managers some more tools to work with individuals and families to make sure that there's a good plan in place for handling those last-minute changes. I would also note that this bill has a technical fix to a service termination appeals statute to make sure that appeals rights for service terminations are available to folks who live in their own homes too. Again, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to focus on this issue. And obviously, you have a sophisticated view of it and are bringing so many good people in the room to talk about it. And appreciate you including Senate File 2974 and eager to continue the conversation. And I know Julia from the ARC has some perspectives from folks who are in these situations to share.
Well, thanks. And I'm seldom called sophisticated, so thank you for that. And thanks for your comments. We're going to talk about this in a little bit. Ms. Bergstaller, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Julia Bergstaller. I'm the Public Policy Director for the ARC Minnesota. The ARC Minnesota is a statewide nonprofit organization that works to promote and protect the human rights of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. First of all, I really am so grateful and so thankful for this thoughtful discussion today, and thank you for including our ideas about how to support people who live in their own homes, especially amidst this crisis. As Ms. Holden spoke to, it's really important to us to ensure people with disabilities can live in their own home with the self-directed services and supports of their choice. And we appreciate this committee's commitment to that as well. As demonstrated over the last several legislative sessions, this is truly critical to people with disabilities statewide. I appreciate you making time for this discussion, but I wanted to specifically call attention to a couple of the individuals who shared their experience in writing, since they couldn't be here today. Carly Hargeth from Winona, Minnesota. She talks about how much it means to her to be able to live in her own home, where she has lived for the last 12 years with supports a few times a week. She says that in order to be treated fairly and equally, people with disabilities need the help and support in order to have us live our lives with freedom, power, and living the way we want to. In another perspective, the workforce shortage has really impacted Lauren Thompson's ability to live in her own home, even though she would like to. Her story speaks to our exact concerns about people losing choice in where they live because of the lack of in-home support. She talks about being forced to move into more congregate care settings because she couldn't find personal care assistance, but also losing her personal freedoms, desires, and rights in the process. She says the workforce shortage is a crisis not just about restoring jobs, but about restoring humanity. There are countless Minnesotans with disabilities across the state facing the same dilemma because of the workforce shortage. That's why we really want to make sure there are workforce shortage solutions for people in all settings, including people who live in their own homes. Things like shared services and supporting case managers to work with folks to make plans for when staffing changes happen suddenly can help eliminate barriers for Lauren and others who have interest and capacity to live in their own homes, while also leveraging our direct support workforce for people with more significant support needs associated with their disability. It is possible for people with disabilities to live in their own homes, independently, with roommates or partners or spouses, and we have the opportunity with this session to help make that dream a reality. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for carrying this bill, and thank you again for taking time today to discuss the workforce shortage, the critical importance of this proposal, and for letting me highlight Carly and Lauren's stories. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Is there some way you can describe, one of the two of you, shared services, who could be against that? Can you talk about the mechanics? Do they charge us more for that, or do you know how that gets fiscal costed out? It seems like shared services makes all the sense in the world. So do you know something about that, either of you two?
Sure, Mr. Chair. We didn't prepare it for today for the informational hearing, but we do have author's amendment language that would direct the commissioner to set billing rates. We think that probably, it would take smart minds in the room, including, folks from ARM and other places, to figure out what is the best way to bill for that. I think, one thought is that it would be the same as if someone were supporting one person, but I think there are other schools of thought on that too, and that the commissioner could pull together the right folks to figure out the best way to do that.
Yeah, do you know, is it considered a neutral cost? Do you even know that part?
We've been in conversation with the department, but we haven't gotten specifics about what they would anticipate for fiscal wise.
All right. Well, this is one of the questions we're going to have to, just a second, I got to deal with the fire here. Thanks. All right. Well, we're going to have to ask about this some more. And so on the, Senator Hoffman, if you notice the end of this bill here, you're a happy co-author on it. On page 918 talks about training. Just hang on one second. The one good thing about texting is it solves problems sometimes. It also causes interruptions, so I apologize. I'm not like a teenage kid. So, Senator Hoffman, there's training, and you and I would agree that training is an issue on so many of these parts. And back when I would talk with other staff in the past, they assumed that people knew what they did about how to do some of this stuff. And one thing I'm going to ask the department when they come back in a week is, okay, they're asking for some money to pay staff to develop a curriculum, to train the stuff that I think they should be working on already. And so don't we have people who set up this sort of stuff? And I don't think just the few people that always visit us all the time should have to do it because they're doing other things. But I just think I think the issue, there's a challenge with adequate training and consistency across the state. Some places are very, very well trained, but it's a bell curve, as I understand. There's some amazingly trained people, maybe in a certain county in the north part of the metro, I think would probably be one of those. Senator Hoffman, perhaps, maybe. Anyway, but some other ones.
Does Highway 10 happen to go through that certain county, Mr. Chair?
It might.
It might? Okay,
Yeah.
I know which one you're talking about then.
Anyway, but so I think we need to talk about that. So any questions for either of these two testifiers? I see any hands. Okay. So I think this is productive, and I think that come next Thursday, we're going to do some more of this. So now I think people are watching the format. If you're part of this industry, would you please help us out? We're trying to actually work together and innovate as a committee to bring ideas forward that you've already talked to the department about and they like or not. But, just fairness to them, the department has a process of how things get winnowed out. And so they start with this whole stack of ideas, and then they have people who talk about it, and then they get it down to about 3 things, and it goes into a department bill. And there's nothing, I don't fault them for that, it's just their process. We have a little more freedom here as the legislature to propose ideas and then work with them to implement really good ideas. Let's just go back to the first one, Senate File 3128. And Ms. Shuttle and Ms. Grafstrom, you can just be around. So I took a few notes here. So maybe Mr. Yates, you can take some notes, and hopefully that somebody from the department is listening, so they can start to make a list, and then you can just forward this off to them later. But so here's, and I would like you all to kind of help me look at this topic, and Ms. Grafstrom and Shuttle, whatever I forgot. So we want to talk about respite sites for unrelated people, which makes all the sense in the world. Why is that so hard? That's my question there. I'm going to list some questions, and then people can add in their own thoughts. This issue about the separate for, when there's multiple persons being the same as one person, that just seems like Who thought of that? I hope that wasn't my bill. Anyway, and then this, talking about the service units not just being 15 minutes, but maybe being an hour, which we've talked about this a lot. I mean, here's somebody sitting up having to fill out a form and still sitting here, you know. Some of the nighttime stuff, you got to wake up every hour. And, I don't know. And then speaking of overnight, then this alternative overnight supervision. And I don't know what the bill says about that, but I would like to look into a lot of that sort of thing. Technology. Senator Hoffman, and then if other members see other elements here, Ms. Shuttle, and perhaps if we missed a highlight here, I'd like you to offer that and we can get some feedback. So Senator Hoffman.
Yeah, you're going, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And I heard Senator Utke make a comment too as well. You're getting on it. This is the conversation to have, the technology side of it, right? I remember years ago when you as a representative, Abeler, you were the chair of the other body, and Representative Newton, now 2 senators, we looked at this wonderful, innovative apartment complex and remember that?
Yeah.
And it was stuff they got over the shelf that they were able to make, and it really was able to observe grandma and grandpa hanging out, right, and do their thing. It was simple more discussion on that, I think, is beneficial, and you brought it up, as well as, it'd be good to get this whole ratio conversation. Is it who defined the risk management side of it? Why is it a 1 to 6, 1 to 5, 1 to 4, 1 to 3? I mean, where does that come into play? Can we look at some flexibility in that if our life is about independence, or if our life is now going down the technology side about, viewing and observing and monitoring somebody, does that mean I have to be there in person, right? I mean, there's so many questions, I guess, that come forward here, Senator Abeler, and I think this is the right time to have those, and I would hope the department comes back to help clarify. Is that making sense?
Yeah, and actually I remember the discussion with a group that was named after Mary T.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
In Margaret's place.
Margaret.
After Mary's mom. But they said about that alternative staffing, or the technology, like, it's really hard to get this approved. And actually, I think they gave up on it. And so we're back just to people doing things. And so we're really interested in that. And maybe Mr. Yates and to the department, can we just start talking about, I'm just going to pick out a number, going from 4 people in a group home to 6, if the space can accommodate it. And I'm interested in 4 to 6. I know it's going to create some discussion, and it ought to. But I know the folks who are worried about, the safety and, laws and all that, whatever, protection. I'm one of them too. But if they don't have a place to live, is that a bill?
No, yeah, Mr. Chair, no, you hit it, the 4 to 6. Sorry, Senator Utke, but the Abelite, that organization in Victoria, they're trying to do the independent, let's take care of it. And
we'll talk about that on Thursday.
Talk about that on Thursday, but you're going down the right theme on let's have conversations, so.
But and sometimes there's a trade-off, and I want it to be a safe one, and I don't want people to be warehoused. I don't want them to sit, trapped in some setting. But at this point, we're worried about them being warm and safe. And so can they be warm and safe and also experiencing the joys of independence? Yes, if we can find a way to get through this time and restructure so we don't need quite as many people, because there's not more people coming. There's 6,000 people that are joining the workforce this year, next year, and maybe the year after. 6,000 in the whole state to be policemen and teachers. And there's probably enough legislators and lawyers, but there's probably no shortage of that, do you think? Or maybe we need more. Anyway, but in these really key roles, Senate counsel, we better have enough of those, for heaven's sakes. Anyways, so that's, and actually I want to know also in that conversation, how hard it is to get a waiver to go from 4 to 5. And are those permanent waivers? That's current law, and I was told that was not hard. But I want to know, can we do that for a long term? Senator Utke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to kind of chime in on all of this, I would challenge the department and the advocates that bring a lot of these ideas to us to continue to think outside the box and dream up some new ideas. But for the department, a lot of what you're talking about, we have to be able to build in some flexibility, because in one house, 4 might be maximum. The next house, 6 could be very comfortable, just depending upon the needs of the individuals there. But we've got to make that easier for the providers to navigate. Doing the same old thing that we've done for the last 10, 20 years is not going to work. Our workforce is different going forward. Recruiting the workforce is going to make us think outside the box and be creative, because we can't go down to the local big box store and buy more employees. You know, we've got that limited pool, but we know we've got a pool out there. We've got people who are not working. They're not being counted as the unemployed. They're going to need skills, but we've got to be able to somehow tap into that resource too. And again, that's thinking outside the traditional ways of doing business. But there are potentials out there, but it calls on everybody being involved, and in this case, asking the department to be flexible and also join us in that mission, because just because we've done it for the last 15 years doesn't mean it's right in 2022, or it's even going to be effective in 2023 and beyond. I mean, we all have to, I mean, these things are all outdated in 2 years. A lot of this other stuff is outdated too.
Yeah. Oh, don't look at me when you talk about outdated. But anyway, so very good. So and so then 2968 is similar. That's rate increases, and I don't want to talk about that. So Ms. Grafstrom and Ms. Shettle, did we miss any highlights of your bills?
No, you didn't, Chair Abeler. And just to clarify, 2968, Senator Utke's bill has the overnight technology piece.
Okay.
Senator Hoffman's bill has those other three provisions that you.
All right. Yeah, and so if the department can comment on cameras as part of that. Okay, Senate File 27, wait, where'd that, the LSS one here, the shared services. So it's just the Riser 9074. So I would like to know from the department, this has got to save money. And what's the barriers to why we can't do more of this? Any other questions we should ask? Mr. Bale, do you have any questions you want the department to answer? Like, see, people like Mr. Bale are common sense folks. They're like, why can't we do this? Go ahead, Mr. Bale.
You can do it, but you're gonna, how can I explain it?
Can you ask the question again?
She wants the question again.
Well, it wasn't really a question. I just said people like Mr. Bale who have been around a little while, they sit in their host home and everywhere else going like, why do we do it that way? This doesn't make any sense to me. And so we're trying to be the committee that actually responds to like people that go like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Let's stop doing things that don't make sense. What do you say? I think we could agree on that.
I can agree on it too.
Well, thank you. It's endorsed by Mr. Bale. So we're going to put.
So you want us back next week?
You can come back every day, Mr. Bale.
No, I work every day.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, fit us into your schedule. But we'll be here. You might want to come back a week from today at this time. Because at 1 o'clock, we're going to take up a similar topic and then answer some of our questions. And so if nothing else, Mr. Yates can get you the link and you can be there and watch at the ringside here compared to the other folks that have to use the public links. All righty. So, Ms. Dott, what questions would you like to have answered about this, and other members as well? Do you have a? So I mean, shouldn't it say money, and what's the barriers? Is that about what you would ask?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, and Mr. Bale, you're amazing. Senate File 2772. This is.
What's that?
Say it again.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. I think you're amazing too.
Oh, my mother likes hearing that stuff, so thanks so much. Thank you. Senate File 2772, Duckworth bill. This has to do with the parents going from 40 to 60 hours. And Mr. Albrecht, if you want to make a note to remember this, I thought of another ploy here, Senator Hoffman, for the forecast, based on, so we're going to ask about 40 to 60 hours and why would that cost money? So here's the thing. Underspending due to inability to obtain services shall not drop to the bottom line until the end of the biennium. What do you think of that?
I love that.
So I'll get that to you. So we'll, I think that would be a really nice policy bill. And I think if we made it take effect at the end of a forecast, after the forecast is in, so if it took effect March 1st, it'd be free.
Totally.
Anyway, I think we're on to something. Senator Bergman would love to have thought of that one, so I'm channeling her right now. Okay, so that's that one. Oh, Huntley. Yeah, he was one of my mentors, too. Anyway, so now Senate File 2773. And I know it's going to cost money, but I just think we want to put a pin in that one. Anybody have any questions about? I suppose, we have a fiscal note on this from before, so maybe we can just, don't we, Mr. Albrecht? This is from last year. We did that Senate File 2774, or 73, which is the increasing the rate on the employment exploration. There was our fiscal note. Maybe you can just get that out to the committee if it exists. And then finally, the coordination stuff. And I don't even know where to start with that, but if the department could react to that idea. And I think what we're doing is a little different than what we often do. So let's say, it would usually Senate File 2974, service coordination comes forward, I'd sit at the table, or Senator Hoffman, and we talk about it. And then they take this idea and go to the department and get technical advice about how to make it work better. Just on the details, Senator Hoffman, back to the paper, you know? Well, in line 4, it could have been said a little differently. They're like, no, what about the idea? And the idea gets lost sometimes. So we're trying to work off ideas and see if we just can't find something to make it go. And maybe if there's a bill we can put together that has a few savings and a few costs that can be neutral, we can escape the whole fight about what to do with $7 billion. So anyway, so that's, so anybody else have, this has been really productive, I think. One of the more unusual committees, but this is how I think a committee should work.
I hear 9, Mr. Chair.
Did he?
I'm hearing it's going north of 7. Is that true?
Maybe, but I don't believe it.
We have the tax chair right here. We should ask her.
Well, I don't believe it's sustainable, so I'm nervous if we spend it all, we're going to wish we wouldn't have, and that's just my personal belief, and I'm not in charge of anything. I'm a middle manager.
I believe you and Senator Murphy had made a comment when we first started about how you've seen the history of what you thought were forecast surpluses ended up not being so true. So I'm okay with the cautious. I'm okay with getting something ready just in case we do have something. At least we're working on the policy. We're working on some really substance change stuff here.
And then something else we're going to talk about.
Chair.
Thanks, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Shut up. It's something else we were going to talk about. I think we had Mr. Nelson come talk about, he spent some time in Washington working for CMS, which was fascinating, doing a lot of policy work. And I don't know if he's well known to people, but he's really smart. And he was noticing a few things. One is that our MNsure system was, thank goodness for Colorado, because it was the second worst, according to what they evaluated out there. I didn't bring it up yesterday. I didn't want to, embarrass the guy. But that was kind of interesting, and that's not our committee. But also, he said Minnesota spends amongst the highest. Minnesota spends amongst the highest in Medicaid spending of any state, of the states. I don't know what number we are, but we're surely in the top 10.
It's 27,000 per person.
Yeah, we're way up there. And how can it be that our states are so desperate in this? And I'm not trying to cut any budgets or anything in this part, and you know me, it's not, but this is the group, if there's a group in the legislature that is going to decide how to make the money go better to buy what we really want, is what we're buying even working? Why aren't we sharing services? That should save money. Why aren't we doing parents and taking care of their own child instead of having to hire somebody outside that they can't get? Why, indeed, all these things we talked about today. And so if people listening to this, and it's, Senator Hoffman, it's got to be a large audience. It's got to be well in excess of like 50 people, I would think, at least. Or anyway, so if we can think of how to do it better, even to set a trajectory to, because we're on the cusp of just dire horribleness with our infrastructure, with with the home care and group homes and assisted livings and nursing homes and all that. And we think that we're happy we can put $322 million toward that as a stopgap. But that's only going to make us a little higher in the rate. And we know that's only a start. So, Senator Murphy, did you want to say anything? All right, Senator Hoffman.
Senator Murphy, want to go first? Are you fine?
No, she's good.
So, Mr. Chair, there was a presentation this morning. After I had talked to you, I was late for Senator Curran's committee, and I got there. But the IT stuff, and there was a report, and I'll get you that report, that because you hit on it. The cost per on Medicaid is high in Minnesota, right? System-wide, it's high. And the thing that got me, there was a study that was done by this National Medicaid, and I'll get you the citation. I have it on a piece of paper, and it's not in front of me. But they looked at 50% of the costs go to the BIR, which is the benefits and insurance side of Medicaid. So then there's this other 50% that it's like, well, where does that go? Then the conversation starts coming out of, well, the degradation of the dollar bill from the time it leaves the feds to the state to the time it gets to the person receiving the services. What is that dollar bill actually worth? I think bringing in what Chuck Johnson is starting to do at the Department of Human Services when they're integrating their IT stuff is a cost savings, Mr. Chair, right? But it's like, but is it truly getting to the point where you're having provider automation in there? Are you really being where you're person-centered and it's being provider automation? And I know it's kind of geeky, but I'm not a geeky person when it comes to the computer. But that triggered me when you said the cost on Medicaid. A lot of that isn't efficiently going to the services that we should be providing. Because if it was, you and I would not be getting phone calls from parents, and we would not be getting letters and emails from people that are losing their services, afraid that their son and daughter is not going to be living in a place, afraid that this group home is closing, right? So, I mean, those are the things that you should hit up, and I'm glad you're hitting on it. And I don't know, it's more of a lecture than it is anything else, but you're hitting on me. If we're going to look at the system, let's really take a look at the system, Mr. Chair.
Well, thanks, and just, back on the quality for the client, and maybe Ms. Helden and Ms. Bergstaller can kind of just rattle this around their heads. Maybe in Minnesota, we're like the Mecca. Maybe it's compared to Arizona or Iowa or Mississippi, we are like just the golden state to want to have a challenge, and maybe we're doing pretty well. Maybe the quality of our services are way better than they are anywhere else. I don't even know. And if we're going to pay the most for the best, like, I'm in, because we want to respect people, everybody. So anyway, that's just some battling to do. I'd really appreciate the discussion. So we're doing some kind of original work here. And so coming forward, like I said, on Tuesday, we're going to spend a little time talking about substance use matters. And then we're going to do what's it cost. And then in the meantime, for next Thursday, I would like to have more people with more ideas. And if you have language, it helps, just so we have a bill in front of us. But it could be a draft. It could be 4 ideas on a scratch paper. So if people are watching at home and they go like, wait, I got an idea. We should do this to make it. So the focus is how to make it better, but especially how to stretch the workforce. And maybe making it work better is going to stretch the workforce. Anyway, last words for anybody? Y'all been amazing. God bless. Have a good weekend. Thanks. We're adjourned.